Was the silent version of the Poseidon adventure being screened on board the Titanic the day it hit an iceberg? False. There is no silent version of the Poseidon adventure.
We love stories where the bad guy gets his just desserts. Plenty of urban legends play upon this idea. But in this story, our subject gets back a lot more than he gave.
This story is set where many urban legends take place, a college campus. Specifically, a fraternity house. More specifically, the frat house basement, where 4 new pledges are forced to sleep as part of their initiation. And like clockwork, Frank Sneedle, the fraternity pledge master, wakes them up for their nightly hazing.
All right, ladies.
Sneedle is one of those campus creeps who treats fraternity hazing like boot
I
camp.
want to have some fun. You want to have some fun, huh?
Determined to put the new guys through hell, he routinely rags on each of them.
Dad, you're going to have a lot of fun tonight.
Especially Kevin, whom he takes special delight in riding hard.
And you? You think you're going to make it in this house? Yes, sir. Well, we'll find out if you can make it.
As their nightly badgering begins, he marches them all out of the basement and into the bathroom, where he makes them take a cold shower
Boys, how's that feel?
with their clothes on.
It's cold, Playmaster. You have a good time, huh?
Then he marches them back to bed and forces them to sleep, sopping wet.
Come on, get in bed.
Of course, Kevin gets special attention.
So how do you feel, fat man? How do you feel?
Great time, sir.
Why do you sound like a moron, huh?
Sorry, Pledge Master.
That's it. Good night. Thanks a lot, fellas. Great time tonight.
Stewing that night in the dark, Kevin has finally had enough.
I'm getting it way too hard.
So one night he plots with his fellow freshmen to wreak revenge upon their sadistic pledge master.
So last night I was thinking, I got this crazy idea.
His plan is simple. He swiped a hand from a cadaver in his anatomy class and plans to give Sneedle the shock of his life. In the bathroom, they plant the putrid appendage where it will have maximum impact. It's a foolproof plan, and it'll give the pledge master a little taste of his own medicine.
Feel that one.
Definitely.
Once it's in place, the pledges huddle in their basement bedroom and wait for Sneedle to make his nightly trip to the lavatory. With sinister delight, they await a blood-curdling scream. But when they finally hear the pledge master overhead, they hear no scream at all. Only silence. They're mystified and wonder if Sneedle ever saw the hand at all.
Something's up. Let's go check it out. Yeah. Let's go.
Curious, Kevin and the others decide to see what's happened. But when they enter the bathroom, they're stunned by what they find. Sprawled out in the bathtub next to the commode is Sneedle, his hair white from shock. His blank eyes stare dumbly into space. The man has snapped into madness from the horror of the cold, dead hand. Every pledge's dream stunt, right? But did it ever really happen? Stories like this have been around almost as long as fraternities have. And like most urban legends, there are many variations.
I've heard it as the pickled hand, where a pickled hand is left hanging from the light string in a room as a kind of a joke. And the next day they find the resident in that room lying on the floor, nibbling on the pickled hand. Body parts, of course, are horrific to us, and they may be used in horrific legends.
Actually, urban legends involving severed body parts are a staple of medical and mortuary schools, part of the process of overcoming a natural revulsion to the dead. But could the shock of this stunt actually turn a man's hair white?
Some veterans have reported to us that experience. Young men who clearly in their family, everybody has dark hair as an example, but their hair is turned white a year after or 6 months after returning from Vietnam.
At the Veterans Administration Trauma Center in San Francisco, subjects are wired up to document the stress they experience when exposed to a series of images. Some relaxing, others quite stress-inducing.
When people are traumatized, it varies as to the types of symptoms that will emerge.
In this test, the subjects grip a sensor to register their emotional reaction to the images they see. Clearly, people can be exposed to all types of trauma, and some can turn your hair white. But if the pledges themselves are victims of abuse, would they really be driven to outdo their pledge master's cruelty?
There's a defense mechanism in our psyche called identification with the aggressor. And in this case, the victims actually become, in certain ways, more sadistic than the pledge master himself. So this is an example of identifying with the aggressor.
Indeed, the whole idea of hazing is to dish out some of what you got when you joined the group. Revenge creates a social hierarchy.
Sociology and psychology studies have shown that whenever you have an organization that has any degree of selectivity in its membership, hazing has a very strong tendency to develop, to obey the law of this state.
And so mock trials are created to illustrate how fraternity hazings can go horribly wrong.
To have their son back. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is what the law calls a wrongful death suit. My client, Ed Cook, is dead from an excess of alcohol. Defendants are a college fraternity chapter and its members. They coerced him into drinking more than the human body can bear.
The trial is based on real-life incidents to drive home the point that extreme hazings do have consequences.
People should remember that hazing is also what's been called a peer-making behavior. That is, that's how you make someone who's not one of your group a member of your group. They have to go through the trial. They have to go through the tribulation. And if they don't, they're never going to feel like a member of the group.
In other words, a rite of passage, a practice found in every culture. Marine Corps boot camp is a classic example. More than military training, it's designed to create a lasting bond between young men who start out as strangers and end up as a cohesive unit that can survive the chaos of war. While the process is honorable, there have been episodes, like this brutal pinning ritual, where official policy was violated and hazing was carried too far. It's a syndrome of payback that can spiral out of control until disaster strikes.
The old human severed hand proctologist exam.
Clearly, extreme hazings have caused real-life tragedies. But this particular story is untrue. For one thing, college freshmen rarely take anatomy classes that give them access to human cadavers. And for another, stress may cause white hair and madness, but not in the few minutes the legend allows.
We've not had hard science to make this connection. Being exposed to traumatic events does things to us biologically. We're just not sure what all those things are yet.
And since there's no record of the stunt ever taking place, the pledge's revenge is nothing more than telling tales out of school.
The world is full of people with tall tales to sell. To separate truth from fiction, you've got to keep your radar up. And do as we've done for the past hour. Examine the facts and ask yourself if it's just a ripping good tale or something that's mostly true.